You've been charged with murder.
Murder, sir?
They concealed the evidence.
Forget this tape. I don't want it to exist.
They covered up the facts.
Withholding evidence is no less evil than charging my client with murder.
But now, the truth must be found.
Open fire!
Tommy Lee Jones and Samuel L. Jackson star in Rules of Engagement.
It's a story of camaraderie between these two guys and their friendship through war.
I want you to be my lawyer.
I'm a good enough lawyer to know you need a better lawyer than me.
It explores loyalty to the flag.
Go, man, go! Go, go!
This is an interesting combination of action and then some real thought-provoking courtroom drama scenes.
Colonel Childers didn't open fire, he returned fire.
There are situations in this movie that are relevant to current events.
It's a whole new ball game. No friends, no enemies, no victories, no defeats.
This is a film about friendship and loyalty and corruption in the government.
If Childers isn't held totally responsible, then the United States will be.
And the role of the modern military.
If I'm guilty of this, I'm guilty of everything I've done in combat for the last 30 years. I'm not gonna leave this job until I find out what happened.
Is that a threat?
Oh, yes, sir.
Academy Award-winning director William Friedkin explores the world of modern warfare and military justice in Rules of Engagement.
And cut it.
The story was conceived by James Webb, who was inspired by his own experiences in Vietnam and as Secretary of the Navy during the Persian Gulf crisis.
Why don't you go around?
Friedkin, the director of such classic films as The French Connection and The Exorcist, was drawn to the dramatic possibilities of this story.
A lot of the films that I've made are pure entertainment, but this film really is about something and deals with some serious issues and life and death issues as involve the military.
The story begins more than 30 years ago in the jungles of Vietnam.
My character's name is Hayes Hodges, and he was platoon leader with Sam's character, Childers.
How'd you get the hill? Tails, you get the swamp. Flip them up.
They came through officers training school together, and they ended up in Vietnam walking through the bush and covering each other's back. And through that experience, they become even closer.
To prepare for their roles, the cast trained side by side with real Marines. They went through a grueling boot camp run by Captain Dale Dye, the technical advisor on Platoon and Saving Private Ryan.
You have to work on the physicality. They have to learn what it was like to live in that jungle day in and day out for months on end. They have to learn how to live in constant fear of enemy attack and that sort of thing. The hard part is working on their minds. I have to be able to reach inside their heart and tell them what we were like in 1968 so that their eyes won't lie, so that whenever they're doing anything on screen, it's coming from the truth. Yeah, now that works. That's good.
Tommy Lee and I went into these units, walking the bush, laying in ambush, taking Captain Dye's orders and making them happen. And I ended up having a really great relationship with my company.
I know that you have real jobs to take care of. But thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
We met a lot of Marines, and I've always admired them and what they do. They've been very helpful, and I sincerely hope we serve them well.
As you spend more time with these young people that are entrusted with our protection and our safety, you find out a lot about how they feel about the country, why they're doing the things they do, and it filters to you, and it gave me a different way of carrying myself when I'm in that uniform.
Quiet, please. Roll up and action.
In the story, Childers, Hodges, and their men are on a routine mission when they are ambushed by the Viet Cong.
There was a dangerous and unfortunate event.
1 actual. Where are you?
The event that caused my character to wind up shot to pieces.
Tell this son of a bitch to get on that radio and pull his men off Hodges. Tell him to break contact and move his men north of Kowloon. One actual. You still with me?
To actually have your life saved by a particular person, at whatever cost it was, it kind of indebts you to them in a certain kind of way.
Got a reprieve, you hear me? You don't get to die today.
3 decades after this pivotal moment in their lives, Hodges is a military lawyer, while Childers continues to command Marines in the field.
There's an interesting scene between Tommy Lee and I walking through the woods where we talk about today's Marine Corps and how, things have changed drastically since we were both those kinds of guys.
You ain't missing nothing, Hodge. It's a whole new ball game. No friends, no enemies, no front, no rear, no victories, no defeats, no mama, no papa. We're orphans out there.
Terry, we've been ordered to the Arabian Sea. The American embassy in Yemen is surrounded by a crowd of demonstrators.
When Childers and his troops are called on a special mission in the Middle East, they are deployed from an aircraft carrier in the Indian Ocean. To stage these scenes, the filmmakers were granted special permission to film aboard the USS Tarawa.
Thank you, Colonel.
The ship's crew was recruited to populate the deck for these sequences.
There is an authenticity, not only in the attitude of the film, but in terms of the personnel that I drew on to realize it. They're not just extras from a Hollywood casting call. Let's run another rehearsal.
For Jackson, shooting aboard the carrier was a boyhood dream come true.
I had played war enough in my childhood and had a lot of fun doing it. But then to actually spend time with these people, I started to have a different sense of what it's like being part of, the Corps.
And action!
We shot the aerials of the carrier, our Marines and Sam Jackson crossing the deck, getting into the helicopters, and the helicopters leaving. So it's a great action moment, great military moment.
The helicopters used in the aerial sequences were provided by the Moroccan Air Force, which also offered the services of its pilots. Training these pilots for the unique requirements of the film posed a challenge for the aerial coordinator.
We've had to teach them more than just film technique. We've had to teach them formation because in this country, they don't fly in big formations. So we've actually have had to do a lot of training. Also, the Moroccan pilots do not land in town. They land out in the desert, they land at airports. So this was all new for them.
The lead helicopter was outfitted with a state-of-the-art camera system operated by remote control.
And from this control console, we can basically control all camera functions. We can steer the camera with this joystick type control, which is a thumb-operated joystick. We can zoom the camera. We can focus the camera. It's basically as if we could touch all these various things on the camera, but we're doing it completely remotely controlled.
Though Childers' mission takes place in Yemen, Friedkin chose to shoot the film in Morocco for a number of logistical reasons.
The Huey's takeoff. It's very difficult to film in Yemen because there has been a lot of violence against foreigners. So what we did was we found that there is a village in a place called Ouarzazate in the northern part of Morocco, several hundred years old, and we only needed to augment it slightly to make Ouarzazate appear like Yemen.
Ouarzazate is an ancient city, and it's very tribal. The Berbers are here mostly, and we've met a lot of really, really extraordinary people who've given us a great insight into this part of the world.
I'm over the embassy. This ain't no baby shit. It's ugly down there.
There is what starts out to be a peaceful protest in front of the American embassy, and the peaceful demonstration turns into a riot.
I play Ambassador Moraine, whose embassy is besieged by a crowd, and he behaves in a very understandable way, very frightened for his family.
Where the hell are those helicopters?
It's a pretty traumatic and very tense situation.
Are we leaving?
The helos are outside, ma'am, but that's up to the ambassador.
The helicopters land, and the Marines come in, and we have to escape.
Hundreds of extras were required to stage these scenes.
Tell them I think they're doing great.
We have approximately 1,500 extras here that speak Arabic, so communication is really tough. So the whole thing is about getting the message to everyone so everyone can do things on cue in a safe manner with fire bombs going off, cars on fire, and gunfire as well.
Shooting the embassy siege required weeks of preparation. The filmmakers devised their own battle plan, with various teams devoted to the helicopter landings, stunts, crowd control, and explosives. The special effects team strategically placed propane burners and thousands of squibs outside the embassy compound. Specially trained marksmen were armed with high-powered air rifles. Loaded with chalk pellets, these rifles were designed to create convincing bullet hits around the actors. Finally, an entire arsenal of military weapons was assembled, along with thousands of rounds of ammunition.
I carry the M16A2. I'm also a grenadier, and that's what this device is that's on the bottom of my weapon. This is a 203, and it fires 40mm grenades, which you see on my assault vest.
Lock and load! Rolling! All 5. And exit!
It looks dramatic, I'm sure, but let me tell you how taxing that was, you know, because we're like crawling across the ground, the guys shooting at us, they're exploding things around us.
It was loud and it was noisy, and you felt like you were living through a real evacuation. You don't have to imagine any fear because you're really under the gun, and there always is an element of danger, so it was pretty hair-raising.
In plotting the visual look of this spectacular action sequence, Friedkin called on his past expertise as a documentary filmmaker.
Let them swarm around you. Go this way. I stage scenes as realistically as they would happen, and then I film them with a newsreel or documentary style, which means the shots are very often not set up. They're not beautiful compositions.
For Jackson, the most difficult aspect of shooting this sequence was making his way to the top levels of the embassy compound.
The interesting thing about Moroccan stairs is they're not uniform. So as soon as you figure you had the rhythm for running up the stairs, you had to run higher one time, lower the next time, and they just kept going up.
As Childers struggles to recover the American flag before escaping from the embassy, the conflict escalates.
All trap units, stay low, stay low!
It's a completely volatile situation. There's sniper fire, there's this whole question of whether or not the crowd starts firing back. His Marines are being killed around him, and he's got to think quickly. He's got to get his men out of there, he's got to keep his men alive, and he's got to not get shot himself.
Carmen! 6, Red Man, engage hostile targets as they appear. Deadly force is authorized. How copy? Over?
And he tells me basically to open fire on this crowd. And I'm hesitant because I see women and children in my line of fire. If we open fire, we're going to take out a lot of innocent people, as I see it. I don't necessarily see what he sees.
Negative. Be advised, I have women and children in my line of fire.
What is it about this order you don't understand, Captain Lee?
Sir, are you ordering me to fire into the crowd? Over?
Yes, goddammit!
Open fire!
Ceasefire! Ceasefire! Ceasefire!
In the aftermath of the chaos and resulting tragedy, Childers returns to the States. There, he is faced with harsh accusations.
There is pressure on the part of the world media to determine someone's guilt, to have somebody guilty for this massacre.
I'm gonna answer any questions, all right?
We see 83 dead innocent people, and if we take responsibility as a country for the tragedy that occurred, then our connection to that part of the world and our influence is going to evaporate.
Childers ordered the slaughter of innocent women and children. Let's just get that straight right now.
We've got the government, we've got the military, we've got the Marines, we've got all these people trying to save face.
Why should the United States be held responsible for the actions of one man?
And I think for a lot of them, it's kind of a lot easier just to point the blame at one person and lock him up and throw away the key, you know?
This is a tape from the embassy security system.
It's a matter of someone trying to save face at someone else's expense.
What if the crowd had weapons? What if this shows they did fire first?
We know that this guy did have some evidence that may or may not have cleared Childers. He didn't even want to know. All he knows is we got to clean this up.
I don't want to watch it. I don't want to testify about it. I don't want it to exist.
And Sam's character is court-martialed upon his return to the United States for use of excessive violence.
It's my duty to inform you that you've been charged with murder and that you issued an illegal order to have your Marines fire into a group of innocent civilians.
Murder, sir?
There is a very thin line between a man being accused of murder and being hailed as a hero.
You want to tell me exactly what the hell happened out there?
The crowd was hostile. They fired on us. They fired first, sir.
At the core of the military's case against Childers is the question of whether he followed the proper protocol in executing the embassy mission.
The whole argument within this film is whether or not Sam followed the rules of engagement, you know, what he should and shouldn't do during this particular incident.
Rules of engagement governing ground conflict in urban areas. 1, deadly force is the last resort.
They are rules that are drawn up in a paneled room with guys sitting around with cups of coffee, trying to devise rules that apply very well on paper, but are not often able to be carried out.
I did what they asked me to do. I lost Marines over there.
It's important to have rules, and it's important to have the means of enforcing those rules. It's important to know that the American Armed Forces will adhere to them. On the other hand, things happen.
With his military career and freedom at stake, Childers calls upon an old friend.
I want you to be my lawyer. I don't want some Starbucks drinker who's never seen combat. I need somebody who's been shot at.
And he asks me to defend him, something I'm reluctant to do because I don't think of myself, rightfully, as a very good lawyer.
You gonna make me ask you twice?
The concept of two friends, one of whom had saved the other's life, and now the other is called upon to return the favor, was a concept that I thought was very powerful and very contemporary.
What do you think? I think they're out to crucify you.
Hodges comes up against a tough adversary, a young Marine prosecutor played by Guy Pearce.
What do you think would happen if a Yemeni killed 83 Americans? You'd have a trial that would last for one day and they'd take off his head. My character very much believes that what Childers has done is wrong. I mean, he's murdered 83 people and wounded another 100. But my character's very much coming from the point of view of somebody who hasn't been in battle, who doesn't entirely know what that is like. Whereas Hodges, as I say, has been in battle and he understands how it can work and how it can't work, what can go wrong.
With pressure mounting to resolve the case quickly, Hodges has little time to prepare a defense.
He goes to Yemen to gather evidence and find out what happened.
After the killing, were there any weapons found in the crowd?
No. They picked up everything that was left. No weapons.
There are hospitals like this all over the city. Most of the people here will die.
I could not find one goddamn witness. I couldn't find one shred of evidence. Not for our side, anyway.
For Jackson and Jones, working together to create the complex relationship between their characters gave them a new respect for each other's acting abilities.
Tommy's a very intelligent and prepared actor. He comes to work ready to do things, and he has great ideas about how to make things work for not just himself, but for everybody around.
Can you identify that blue and white ribbon on your uniform?
It's the Navy Cross.
Sam brings all the qualities of any character to whatever role he plays. He's that good an actor, and you believe him.
For Jones, staging and shooting the courtroom scenes brought back memories of a performance early in his career.
The first dramatic play I ever applied myself to was in prep school. We did a play called The Caine Mutiny Court-Martial, which is always a popular play for prep schools, especially all boys schools, because the cast is all male. There's only one set, It's easy to build a courtroom, and that was really what got me interested in drama.
Another job well done.
And several times doing this military courtroom drama, I amused myself by thinking I really haven't gone very far. Still doing the same thing.
This is you, T.L., and I'm going to put Chandler here.
Friedkin had directed the Emmy-nominated film 12 Angry Men, and he brought that experience of creating tension in a courtroom to this film.
Billy instills a lot of confidence in us, and he's very open about letting us bring things to the moment.
You've got to be on your toes with Billy. I mean, you've really got to know your stuff.
He's very enthusiastic. He's deeply interested in cameras and the use of cameras.
So, Tom, yeah, that's right there. He's still looking there.
Billy has a great eye for detail, and he's very decisive, which you need when you're dealing on a scale this size.
I'll make that as a cut. All right. Just get him through.
He just brings, the touch of a master.
Why did a well-trained fighting unit have to slaughter unarmed men, women, and children when their orders were simply to evacuate the embassy?
As the case unfolds, the events surrounding the embassy massacre are recounted from many different points of view.
Were you more worried you'd be killed by the crowd below or the snipers in the buildings across the way?
I don't know, sir. I wasn't thinking about that. Have you ever been under fire?
You killed the wrong people, didn't you?
Wasn't the severity of the problem at the embassy understated?
Absolutely not. It was a peaceful crowd. That is until Colonel Childers arrived and prevented me from pursuing further avenues of diplomacy.
My character is persuaded by some of his political peers to completely reverse the scenario when he arrives in court.
Mrs. Moraine, I don't believe your husband is telling the truth about what Colonel Childers did in Yemen.
She really has to make a choice. Does she protect her husband, and maybe as a consequence, this man goes to jail? Or does she tell what she feels in her heart and let her husband down?
I can subpoena you, ma'am.
Don't put me up there. I'm a very credible witness.
As the case builds to a climax, the true validity of the rules of engagement is called into question.
Our film deals with a government that really doesn't think about the welfare of soldiers who are sent into a battle situation and then left out to dry. And if something goes wrong, they very often pay the price. And that's what this film is about.
This is gonna take us both down, you know?
Yeah? How's that work, Hayes? You gonna spend the rest of your life in prison, too? There's the courtroom drama. There's a mystery.
We don't have anybody to back up your case.
That's because all my witnesses are dead.
It's a war film. It's a courtroom drama.
Why are those tapes not here?
I turned over all materials in my possession.
I think they'll be on the edge of their seats to the very end, and I think they'll go out of the movie and argue about what was right and what was wrong.
Did you try to evacuate the innocent people before you slaughtered them?
I was taking fire. There were weapons in that crowd.
One hopes that the audience will leave with the one burning question. In that situation, what would I have done?
They were killing my Marines!
The audience is, in a sense, the final jury. The audience will determine in their own minds and hearts the guilt or innocence of Colonel Childers.
There are rules, and Marines are sworn to uphold them.
I was not going to stand by and see another Marine die just to live by those rules!